The human man's mail order, alien bride arrived bruised. These secrets turned an arrangement into war. The mining colony of Tarsus 4 wasn't much to look at. A collection of prefab structures sprawled across a rust-colored landscape under an eternally hazy sky. It was the kind of place where dreams came to die, where men like Rick Turner ended up when they had nowhere else to go. Rick wiped sweat from his brow as he checked his chronometer for the 5th time in 20 minutes. The transport was late, again. He leaned against a support beam at the edge of the landing pad, his muscular frame tense with anticipation. His gray-green eyes scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of an approaching vessel. "You're going to wear a hole in that pad if you keep pacing," rumbled a voice behind him. Rick turned to see Krell, his draconid foreman, approaching with an amused expression on his scaled face. The alien's massive frame cast a long shadow across the dusty ground. "She's late," Rick replied, running a hand through his short dark hair. "The transport was supposed to be here an hour ago." Krell's mouth twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. "Patience, human. Not everything runs on your species' timetable." "Easy for you to say. You're not the one who spent 6 months' wages on a mail-order bride." The draconid's expression softened. "Still can't believe you took my advice on that." "Yeah, well, being the only human on this rock for 3 years makes a man desperate for company." Rick adjusted the weapon strapped to his thigh, a habit born of necessity in the lawless outer colonies. "Just remember what I told you," Krell said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Cygnian females are different, sensitive, not like human women." Before Rick could respond, a distant roar cut through the air. Both men looked up to see a transport ship breaking through the cloud cover, its engines glowing hot as it descended toward the landing pad. "About damn time," Rick muttered, straightening his green shirt and dusting off his work pants. He wanted to make a good first impression, though he knew he looked every bit the rough-edged miner he was. The ship settled onto the pad with a hiss of hydraulics, dust swirling around its hull. Rick stepped forward, heart hammering in his chest. This was it. After months of correspondence, credits exchanged and waiting, his bride had arrived. The airlock cycled open with a metallic groan, and Rick held his breath. A slender figure appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the bright interior of the ship. As she stepped into the light, Rick felt his stomach drop. She was beautiful. There was no denying that. Her skin was a soft blue, almost luminescent in the harsh sunlight. Silver white hair cascaded down her back, framing a delicate face with eyes the color of a winter sky. But it was the bruises that caught his attention. Angry purple marks, marring her blue skin, scrapes along her arms, and what looked like dried blood staining her torn metallic clothing. "Holy shit," he breathed, rushing forward as she stumbled on the ramp. He caught her before she fell, feeling her tremble beneath his hands. "What happened to you?" She stared up at him, those winter sky eyes wide with fear. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Instead, she shrank away from his touch, wrapping her arms protectively around herself. "I'm Rick," he said gently, trying to keep the fury from his voice. "Rick Turner. I guess I'm your husband now." Still, she said nothing, only trembled more violently. From the ship's doorway, a bulky figure emerged. The transport captain, a Thulian, with mottled green skin and 4 arms. "Delivery complete," he grunted, tossing a small data chip toward Rick. "Marriage certificate and ownership transfer. She's all yours, human." "Ownership?" Rick caught the chip reflexively, his eyes narrowing. "What the hell are you talking about? And what happened to her?" The captain shrugged his upper set of shoulders. "Not my problem. I just transport the merchandise." "Merchandise?" Heat rose in Rick's chest. "She's a person, not cargo." "Whatever you say, human." The captain turned to leave. "Enjoy your purchase." Rick grabbed the alien's arm, spinning him around. "I asked you a question. What happened to her?" The captain's eyes narrowed to slits. "Take it up with the broker." "I'm just the delivery guy." He yanked his arm free and retreated into his ship. Rick wanted to follow, to demand answers, but the girl behind him made a soft, frightened sound. He turned to find her swaying on her feet, eyes unfocused. "Krell," he called to his foreman, who had been watching the exchange with growing concern. "Help me get her to my quarters." Together, they supported the fragile alien girl across the compound, ignoring the curious stares of the other miners. Rick's mind raced. This wasn't what he had signed up for. He'd wanted companionship, maybe even love eventually, not whatever this was. Inside his modest quarters, they helped the girl onto his bed. Up close, her injuries looked even worse. Fresh bruises layered over older ones, cuts that hadn't been properly treated. "I'll get the medkit," Krell offered, his usual gruffness replaced by genuine concern. Left alone with the girl, Rick crouched beside the bed, careful to keep some distance between them. "Can you understand me?" he asked softly. She nodded once, her eyes never leaving his face. "Good. That's good." He offered what he hoped was a reassuring smile. "I'm not going to hurt you. I want to help. Can you tell me your name?" For a long moment, she was silent. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Shasara." "Isara," he repeated, liking the way it sounded. "That's beautiful. Can you tell me what happened to you, Isara? Who did this?" Fear flashed across her face and she shook her head violently. Okay, Rick soothed, raising his hands. "You don't have to tell me now. But I want you to know something." He leaned closer, making sure she was looking directly at him. "Whoever did this to you, they're going to pay. I promise you that." As Krell returned with the med kit, Rick stood, a cold determination settling over him. He had come to Tarsus IV to escape his past, to lose himself in the monotony of mining life. But now, looking at the battered girl on his bed, he knew that quiet existence was over. Someone had hurt what was his, and Rick Turner wasn't the kind of man who let that slide. The next morning, Rick woke to find Isara curled at the far edge of his bed. He'd insisted she take it while he slept on the floor, but seeing her now, silver hair splayed across his pillow, bruises stark against her blue skin, stirred something protective in his chest. He moved quietly, not wanting to wake her as he prepared for his shift. The colony's mining operations wouldn't stop just because his life had suddenly become complicated. "You're leaving?" Her voice startled him. Rick turned to find Isara watching him, those winter sky eyes tracking his every movement. "Just for my shift," he explained, buckling his utility belt. "I'll be back in 8 hours. There's food in the conservator, and the comm unit is programmed to reach me if you need anything." She sat up slowly, wincing at the movement. "You're going to work?" As if nothing has happened. "What else would I do?" "Run," she said simply. "Hide. That's what I would do." Rick paused, studying her. "Who are you running from, Isara?" Fear flickered across her face, but something else too, a steely determination he hadn't noticed before. "His name is Lord Verinar. He was my owner." "Owner?" The word tasted foul on his tongue. "On my world, some females are bred for companionship. We're property." She looked down at her hands. "I was sold to Verinar when I came of age. He's a high-ranking official in the Taurian hegemony." Rick felt his blood run cold. The hegemony was the dominant power in this sector, a sprawling alien empire with hundreds of vassal worlds. "And he did this to you?" He gestured to her injuries. Isara nodded. "I displeased him." "I always displeased him." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "So I ran. I used his access codes to register myself with the Interspecies Marriage Bureau. Your application was the first to be approved." "So you weren't sent by the agency I paid?" "I was. Just not in the way you expected." She met his eyes. "I'm sorry for the deception. I had nowhere else to go." Before Rick could respond, his door chimed. He tensed, hand dropping to his weapon. "Turner? You in there?" Krell's familiar rumble came through the door. Rick relaxed slightly, moving to open it. The Draconid filled the doorframe, his scaled face grim. "We need to talk," Krell said, eyes darting to Isara. "Privately." Rick hesitated, then nodded to Isara. "I'll be right outside. You'll be safe." In the corridor, Krell wasted no time. "That bride service you used? It's a front for the Taurian slave trade. I've been making inquiries since yesterday." "I know," Rick said grimly. "She just told me. She's running from some Taurian bigwig named Verinar." Krell's scales paled. Lord Vernar, the hegemony's Minister of Expansion? You know him. Of him. He's the one pushing for mining rights in this sector. Rumor has it he's ruthless, crushes anyone who stands in his way. Rick leaned against the wall, processing this. And now his property is in my quarters. There's more, Krell said, lowering his voice. An unregistered ship entered orbit an hour ago. Colony security flagged it, but they're keeping their distance. It's Torian. He found her already? Rick felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Looks that way. And if he's sent retrieval specialists... Krell left the implication hanging. Rick straightened, decision made. I need to get her out of here. And go where? The hegemony controls this entire sector. I'll figure something out. Can you cover my shift? Krell nodded reluctantly. For today. But Turner, this isn't just about you anymore. If the Torians think the colony is harboring a fugitive... I know. Rick clapped his friend on the shoulder. Thanks, Krell. Back inside, he found Isara attempting to dress, struggling with the clean clothes he'd left for her. The human-sized garment swallowed her slender frame. Here, he said, moving to help her. His fingers brushed against her skin as he adjusted the shirt, and he felt her shiver at his touch. Their eyes met, and for a moment, something electric passed between them. You have gentle hands, she murmured, not pulling away. I didn't expect that. What did you expect? He asked, voice rougher than he intended. From the stories about humans? Violence, dominance, her lips curved in a small smile. Your species has quite the reputation. All bad. Not all. Her gaze dropped to his mouth, then back to his eyes. Humans are also known for their passion. Heat surged through Rick. Despite everything, the danger, the complications, he was suddenly acutely aware of her as a woman, not just a refugee. Her scent, something like cinnamon and starlight, filled his senses. Isara, he began, not sure what he was going to say. She silenced him by placing a delicate blue finger against his lips. I chose you, she whispered. Out of all the applications, I chose yours. Your eyes in the hologram, they were kind. Rick gently took her hand, mindful of her injuries. We need to leave. Your former owner has found you. There's a Torian ship in orbit. Fear washed over her features, but she squared her shoulders. Then we run. Together, Rick promised, squeezing her hand. But first, we need a plan. Isara's winter sky eyes hardened with resolve. I know things about Vernar, secrets, information that could destroy him if it reached the right people. What kind of secrets? The kind that start wars, she said softly. The kind worth killing for. We need to speak with Administrator Pax, Rick said, strapping his sidearm to his thigh. He has the authority to deny Torian ships landing clearance. Isara's winter sky eyes widened. You want to go to the authorities? After what I just told you, Pax is fair. He's kept this colony independent despite pressure from larger powers. Rick handed her a hooded cloak. Besides, we need allies. She accepted the garment reluctantly. On my world, authority only serves those with power. This isn't your world anymore, he offered a reassuring smile. It's ours. The word hung between them, unexpectedly intimate. Isara's blue cheeks darkened with a blush as she pulled the hood over her silver hair. They slipped out of Rick's quarters, keeping to the less-traveled service quarters. The mining colony was beginning its day cycle, aliens of various species moving through the main thoroughfares with purpose. Everyone's staring, Isara whispered, pressing closer to Rick. They're not staring at you, he replied, placing a protective arm around her shoulders. They're staring at me. Humans are rare out here. Is that why you came? To be unique? Rick's jaw tightened. I came because Earth had nothing left for me. Before Isara could inquire further, they reached the administration building, a squat, utilitarian structure at the colony's center. The receptionist, a multi-eyed Vespian, buzzed them through with surprising speed. The administrator is expecting you, the alien chittered. Rick frowned. How could he know we were coming? The answer awaited them in Pax's office. The administrator, a tall, willowy alien with iridescent skin, stood beside his desk, speaking in hushed tones with another figure. As the door slid shut behind them, the second alien turned. He was Taurian, unmistakable with his crimson scales and elaborate uniform adorned with military insignia. "Ah, the human," the Taurian said, his mouth stretching into what might have been a smile. "And my lord's missing property." Isara shrank against Rick, trembling. He stepped forward, positioning himself between her and the Taurian. "Commander Drav," Administrator Pax said smoothly, "may I present Rick Turner, one of our most valued miners." "We've met," Rick said coldly. "When he delivered my bride yesterday." Drav inclined his head. "A simple transport assignment. Now I'm here on more official business." "Lord Vernar has filed a theft report," Pax explained, his tone carefully neutral. "This female is registered as his legal property under hegemony law." "She's registered as my wife under colony law," Rick countered. "A fraudulent registration," Drav interjected, "using stolen access codes." Rick felt Isara's fingers dig into his arm. "Administrator," he said, "may I speak with you privately?" Pax hesitated, then nodded. "Commander, would you excuse us?" The Taurian's eyes narrowed, but he bowed stiffly and exited. Once the door closed, Rick turned to Pax. "He's offering you something. What is it?" Pax sank into his chair, suddenly looking weary. "Mining rights, exclusive contracts, infrastructure development, everything this colony has needed for years. In exchange for her." "Yes." Pax's luminous eyes shifted to Isara. "I'm sorry, but the hegemony's offer would transform this colony. Hundreds would benefit." "Vernar is planning to attack human space," Isara said abruptly. Both men turned to her in surprise. "He's been testing biological weapons on sentient species," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "preparing for expansion into human-controlled sectors. I've seen the reports, the test subjects." "That's a serious accusation," Pax said carefully. "It's the truth. Why do you think he wants me back so desperately?" Her eyes flashed. "I know too much." Rick's mind raced. "Administrator, if what she's saying is true, this goes beyond our colony. The Human Alliance needs to know." Pax steepled his long fingers. "Even if I believed you, and I'm not saying I don't, the nearest human outpost is 3 days away by fast courier. Commander Drav won't wait that long." "Then stall him," Rick urged. "Tell him you need time to process the extradition request." "And what will you do with this time?" Rick and Isara exchanged glances. "Get proof," she said. "I can access Vernar's private files through his implant signature. I just need a secure terminal." Pax studied them for a long moment, then sighed. 24 hours, that's all I can give you." After leaving the administration building, Rick led Isara to the communications hub, a small, cluttered room filled with outdated equipment. "Will this work?" he asked as she examined the terminal. "It's ancient, but yes." Her slender blue fingers danced across the interface. "I'll need time, though. And privacy." Rick nodded, moving to the door. "I'll stand watch." "Wait." Isara caught his hand, pulling him back. "Thank you for believing me, for standing with me. I told you, we're in this together now." She rose on her tiptoes, pressing her lips to his in a tentative kiss. Rick froze for an instant, then responded, his arms encircling her waist. Her mouth was cool against his, her scent intoxicating. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Isara's eyes had darkened to the color of twilight, her silver hair gleaming in the dim light. "In my culture," she whispered, "a female only offers herself to a male she trusts completely." Rick brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And do you trust me completely?" "With my life." Her hands slid up his chest. "With everything I am." The air between them crackled with tension, desire mingling with the danger of their situation. For a moment, Rick forgot about Taurian commanders and biological weapons, lost in the depths of her winter sky eyes. "When this is over," he promised, his voice rough with emotion, "when you're safe." She silenced him with another kiss, this one deeper, more urgent. "Don't make promises about a future we might not have," she murmured against his lips. "Just be with me now." And he was, completely, utterly, with a passion that surprised them both. In that small, cluttered room, surrounded by the hum of ancient machinery, they found a connection that transcended species and circumstance. For a brief, perfect moment, they weren't fugitive and protector, alien and human. They were simply two souls finding solace in each other's arms. Afterward, as Isara returned to her work at the terminal, Rick watched her with new eyes. Whatever happened next, he knew with absolute certainty that he would do anything to protect her, not because she was his bride, but because she had become something far more precious. She had become his reason to fight. "I'm in," Isara whispered, her fingers dancing across the terminal. The screen before her filled with encrypted Taurian data streams, glowing an ominous red in the dim light of the communications hub. Rick stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, the other on his sidearm. Their earlier intimacy had left him feeling both stronger and more vulnerable, a paradox he hadn't expected. Every protective instinct in his body had intensified. "How long will the download take?" he asked, glancing nervously at the door. 10 minutes, maybe less." Isara's winter sky eyes reflected the scrolling data. "Vernar's security is sophisticated, but he never imagined someone like me would access it." "Someone like you?" A small smile played at her lips. "Someone he considered furniture rather than a person. He spoke freely around me, used his access codes without concern." Her expression darkened. "His arrogance will be his downfall." The terminal chimed softly as images began appearing on screen. Laboratory facilities, test subjects in containment units, genetic sequencing data. Rick leaned closer, his stomach turning at what he saw. "Those are humans," he breathed, recognizing the distinctive features of his species among the test subjects. "They're experimenting on humans." "Captured from frontier worlds," Isara confirmed grimly. "The weapon is designed to target human genetic markers specifically. It would leave alien populations untouched while eradicating humanity." Rage surged through Rick, pure, white-hot, and consuming. "We need to get this data to the Human Alliance immediately." "Almost there," Isara murmured, inserting a data crystal into the terminal. 70% complete." The overhead lights suddenly flashed red, and an alarm blared through the colony's public address system. "Attention all residents," Administrator Pack's voice echoed. "The colony is now under security lockdown by order of hegemony authorities. All civilians are to remain in their quarters. Any resistance will be met with force." Rick cursed. "Drav must have figured out what we're doing." 90%, Isara reported, her voice tight with tension. "Just a few more seconds." The door to the communications hub slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Rick spun, weapon drawn, only to find Krell filling the doorway, his scaled face grim. "Turner, we've got trouble," the Draconid rumbled. "Taurian troops are conducting building-by-building searches. They've started at the residential sector, but they'll be here soon." "We need more time," Rick said, glancing back at Isara. "Download complete," she announced, removing the data crystal and slipping it into a hidden pocket in her clothing. "We have everything." Krell's eyes widened as he took in the images still displayed on the terminal. "What in the seven hells is that?" "Proof that the Taurians are planning genocide against humans," Rick answered, powering down the terminal. "And we're the only ones who can warn the Alliance." "The colony's communications array is locked down," Krell said. "No outgoing transmissions." Rick's mind raced. "What about the emergency beacon at Mining Outpost 3? "It's designed to punch through any interference." Krell nodded slowly. "It could work. But the outpost is 10 kilometers from the main colony through the western tunnels." "Then that's where we're going." Rick turned to Isara, who was watching him with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Are you up for a hike?" She straightened, her silver hair catching the red emergency lights. "Lead the way, husband." The words sent an unexpected thrill through him. Despite their dire circumstances, Krell cleared his throat. "You'll need help. The miners won't stand for this, not when they see what the Taurians are planning. Many have human friends, family in Alliance space." "It's too dangerous," Rick protested. "This isn't their fight." "It became their fight when Drav brought his troops to our home," Krell countered. Besides, you humans aren't the only ones who can be stubborn. A commotion echoed from the corridor outside, shouted orders in the harsh Tauran language, the heavy tread of armored boots. No time to argue, Krell said, moving to a maintenance panel in the wall. He pulled it open, revealing a narrow service tunnel. This leads to the lower levels. I'll gather who I can and meet you at Junction 17. From there, we can access the western tunnels. Rick clasped his friend's scaled arm. Thank you. Save it for when we're all still alive. Krell's mouth twisted in what passed for a draconid smile. Now go. Rick helped Isara into the service tunnel, then followed, pulling the panel closed behind them. They crawled through the cramped space, the sounds of the Taurian search party growing fainter. Your friend is very brave, Isara whispered as they navigated the dark passage. Krell, he's just stubborn, like most draconids. No, she said softly, he's loyal. To you, I've never seen an alien show such respect to a human before. Rick paused, considering her words. Out here, species matters less than character. We judge each other by actions, not biology. A novel concept for someone raised in the hegemony. Her hand found his in the darkness, squeezing gently. I'm beginning to understand why humans are so feared by the Taurian leadership. Feared? I thought we were just considered primitive. That's the public stance. Privately? She moved closer, her breath cool against his ear. They're terrified of human adaptability, your capacity for forming bonds across the species lines. Veranar calls it cultural contamination, the way humans inspire loyalty in other species. Rick felt a surge of pride at her words. Is that why they want to wipe us out? They're afraid we'll make friends with the wrong aliens? Essentially, yes. Her lips brushed his cheek, sending a shiver down his spine despite their predicament. And having experienced human friendship firsthand, I can understand their concern. The intimate memory of their earlier union flashed through Rick's mind, heating his blood even as they fled for their lives. There had been something transcendent about their connection, something that defied the boundaries of their different species. When we get through this, he promised, I'll show you just how friendly humans can be. Her soft laughter echoed in the tunnel. I look forward to more cultural exchange, Rick Turner. They reached a junction where the service tunnel widened enough for them to stand. Rick checked his wrist computer, orienting himself within the colony's maze-like infrastructure. Junction 17 is 2 levels down, he said. We need to. A distant explosion rocked the colony, the shock wave reverberating through the tunnel walls. Dust and debris rained down as emergency lights flickered. What was that? Isara gasped, clutching Rick's arm. Sounds like the miners aren't waiting for us to start the resistance, he replied grimly. Come on, things are about to get very complicated. The explosion's aftershocks had barely subsided when Rick heard heavy footsteps approaching their position. He pulled Isara behind him, drawing his weapon. Wait, she whispered, placing a hand on his arm. Something's wrong. I feel strange. Before Rick could respond, a sharp pain lanced through his head, a high-pitched whine that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. He staggered, disoriented, as Isara collapsed against him with a cry of agony. Tracking signal activated, announced a cold mechanical voice from the darkness ahead. Subject located. Commander Drav stepped into view, flanked by 2 armored Taurian soldiers. In his hand, he held a small device, emitting a pulsing red light. Remarkable technology, Drav said conversationally. All high-value property in the hegemony is implanted with tracking nodes. Lord Veranar was most specific about this one's importance. Rick steadied himself against the tunnel wall, fighting through the disorienting pain. She's not property. Your primitive human sentimentality is amusing, Drav replied, his reptilian features twisting into a smile. But irrelevant. The female contains an implant that responds to this activation signal. Quite painful, I'm told. Isara had curled into a fetal position, her slender body racked with spasms. Her winter sky eyes, usually so bright, had dulled with agony. Turn it off, Rick growled, raising his weapon despite the throbbing in his skull. I think not. Drav adjusted a dial on the device, and Isara's back arched as she screamed. The implant is quite sophisticated. It can cause pain, pleasure, or death with the touch of a button. Lord Vernar had it installed personally. Rage burned through Rick's veins, momentarily overriding the pain in his head. "I'll kill you." "You'll try," Drav conceded. "But first, I believe you have something that belongs to us. A data crystal, perhaps?" Another explosion rocked the tunnel, closer this time. Dust and debris rained down as the lights flickered. One of Drav's soldiers stumbled, and Rick seized the opportunity. He fired 3 rapid shots, 2 at the soldiers, 1 at the tracking device in Drav's hand. The device exploded in a shower of sparks, and Drav howled in pain as his hand was mangled. The tunnel plunged into darkness as the emergency lighting failed. "Isara!" Rick called, dropping to his knees and feeling blindly for her. "Here!" she gasped, her voice weak but present. "The pain, it's stopping." A new light source appeared, the beam of a mining headlamp cutting through putting through the darkness. Krell's massive form emerged from a side passage, followed by a dozen miners of various species, all armed with industrial tools and improvised weapons. "Thought you might need some help," the Draconid rumbled, his scaled face splitting into a fierce grin. The explosion was a diversion. Worked better than expected. Rick helped Isara to her feet, supporting her weight against his side. Drav was tracking her. Some kind of implant. "Not anymore," Krell observed, gesturing to where Drav and his soldiers were retreating down the tunnel, the commander clutching his injured hand. "But they'll be back with reinforcements." "We need to get to mining outpost 3, Rick said. "The emergency beacon won't work," Isara interrupted, her voice steadying as she recovered. "Not with what we have." The data crystal contains more than just evidence of the weapon. It has the formula for a countermeasure, a vaccine that could protect humans from the pathogen. Rick stared at her. "You never mentioned that." "I wasn't certain until I saw the complete files." She straightened, though she kept her hand on his arm for support. "But the data is encrypted. We need a more powerful system to decode it before transmission." Krell exchanged glances with the other miners. The colony's main computer in the administration building could do it. "Which is undoubtedly crawling with Taurian troops by now," Rick pointed out. A Vespian miner chittered excitedly, its multiple eyes blinking in rapid succession. Krell nodded in agreement. "Pax has a private terminal in his residence," the Draconid translated. "Isolated from the main system, but just as powerful and less likely to be guarded heavily." "Can you get us there?" Rick asked. Krell gestured to the assembled miners. "We'll create another diversion, a big one this time. The maintenance tunnels connect directly to the administrative residential sector. You'll have 10 minutes, maybe less." Rick turned to Isara, who was now standing on her own, her winter sky eyes clear once more. "Can you decrypt the data that quickly?" "I'll have to," she said simply. As the miners dispersed to prepare their diversion, Rick pulled Isara into a quiet alcove of the tunnel. His hands cupped her face gently, examining her for any lingering effects of the implant's activation. "Why didn't you tell me about the implant?" he asked softly. "I didn't know." Her eyes held his, unflinching. "Vernar must have had it installed while I was sedated. It's how he controls his collection." The word turned Rick's stomach. "We'll find a way to remove it. If we survive that long." She leaned into his touch, her cool skin warming beneath his fingers. "The countermeasure, Rick. It's the real reason Vernar wants me back. The biological weapon is his masterpiece, his guarantee of promotion within the hegemony hierarchy. If humans develop a defense against it, then his grand plan fails," Rick finished. He pulled her closer, pressing his forehead against hers. "We're going to stop him, Isara. Together." "Together," she echoed, her lips finding his in a kiss that tasted of determination and something deeper, a connection that transcended their brief time together. When they broke apart, her winter sky eyes were shining with a new resolve. "There's something else you should know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The implant, it's not just for tracking. It contains a dead man switch. If Vernar can't have me back, he'll kill you remotely," Rick concluded, cold dread settling in his stomach. "How long do we have?" "The standard protocol is 24 hours from activation. After that," she didn't need to finish the sentence. Rick checked his chronometer. 18 hours left. Then we'd better move fast. From somewhere in the distance came the sound of another explosion, followed by alarms and shouted orders. Krell appeared at the entrance to their alcove. "That's our cue," the Draconid said. "Most of the Taurian forces are converging on the mining sector. Your path to Pax's residence should be clear." Rick clasped his friend's scaled arm. "Be careful." "Worry about yourselves," Krell replied. "And Turner? When this is over, you owe me several drinks." "Deal." As they prepared to move out, Isara squeezed Rick's hand. "Your friend was right, you know." "About what?" "About why the Taurians fear humans?" Her winter sky eyes held a mixture of wonder and admiration. One human has inspired an entire colony of aliens to risk their lives in rebellion. That's the power Vernar fears, the power to unite different species against oppression. Rick hadn't considered it that way. He'd always seen himself as just another worker, no different from the aliens he labored alongside. But looking at the determination on Krell's face, at the diverse group of miners willing to fight for a cause that wasn't directly their own, he began to understand. Perhaps there was something special about humanity after all. Administrator Pax's residence was eerily quiet when Rick and Isara slipped inside through a maintenance access panel. The elegant dwelling with its high ceilings and alien art pieces stood in stark contrast to the utilitarian miners' quarters Rick called home. "The terminal should be in his private study," Isara whispered, her winter sky eyes scanning the dimly lit interior. They moved silently through the residence, Rick leading with his weapon drawn. The distant sounds of explosions and alarms created a surreal backdrop to their infiltration. "There," Isara pointed to an ornate door at the end of a corridor. The study beyond was a testament to Pax's status. Rare artifacts from a dozen worlds adorned the shelves, and a massive viewport offered a panoramic view of the colony and the barren landscape beyond. But it was the sleek terminal on the desk that drew their attention. Isara immediately set to work, inserting the data crystal and bypassing the security protocols with practiced ease. Rick took up position by the viewport, keeping watch on the chaos unfolding across the colony. "How long?" he asked, noting the flashes of weapons fire in the distance. 10 minutes for the decryption," she replied, her fingers dancing across the interface. "Then we can transmit." A sudden rumble shook the building, different from the ground-based explosions they'd felt before. Rick looked up to see a massive Taurian warship descending through the atmosphere, its weapons systems glowing with charged energy. "That's a Dreadnought-class vessel," Isara said, her voice tight with fear. "They're not just sending reinforcements, they're preparing for orbital bombardment." As if confirming her assessment, all communication systems in the room activated simultaneously. Commander Drav's face appeared on multiple screens, his reptilian features twisted with rage, the bandaged stump where his hand had been clearly visible. "Attention! Citizens of Tarsus 4, he announced, his voice echoing throughout the colony. "This is your final warning. Surrender the human Rick Turner and the fugitive property designated Isharea 7 within 1 hour, or we will begin systematic destruction of your colony. This is not a negotiation." The transmission cut off, leaving a deathly silence in its wake. "They're bluffing," Rick said, though uncertainty crept into his voice. "They wouldn't destroy an entire mining colony over one person?" "They would if they knew what we have," Isara countered, her attention still focused on the decryption process. "Vernar can't let this information reach human authorities." The terminal chimed, indicating the first layer of encryption had been broken. Data began flooding the screen: laboratory reports, genetic sequences, and most disturbingly, casualty projections for major human population centers. "This is worse than I thought," Isara murmured. "The weapon is designed to spread through human water supplies. Entire planets could be infected within days." Rick felt sick as he scanned the projected death tolls. Billions of human lives reduced to clinical statistics. "And the countermeasure?" "Still decrypting that section," she replied, "but there's something else here. Communications between Vernar and his research team." Her eyes widened as she read. "Rick, this operation isn't sanctioned by the Hegemony Council. Vernar is acting independently, using Hegemony resources for his personal vendetta against humanity." "A rogue operation?" Rick moved to her side, studying the evidence. That could change everything. If the Hegemony Council doesn't know, they thus disavow him to avoid war with the human alliance, Isara finished. But we need proof they can't ignore. The terminal chimed again as the final layer of encryption fell away. There it is, Isara breathed. The complete formula for the countermeasure, and... She stopped abruptly, her face paling. What is it? Rick asked, alarmed by her expression. The dead man switch in my implant, she said softly. According to these files, it's not just set to kill me. It contains a sample of the biological agent. If it activates... You become patient zero, Rick concluded, horror dawning. He's using you as a backup delivery system. Isara nodded grimly. If I die, the pathogen releases. Anyone near me, anyone human, would be infected. The implications hit Rick like a physical blow. Vernar had calculated everything, ensuring that even in failure, his weapon would find a human target. Rick himself. How much time do we have left? He asked, checking his chronometer. 15 hours until the implant activates, she replied. But that's not our immediate problem. As if on cue, the building shook again as the Taurian warship moved into position above the colony. We need to transmit this data now, Rick said, to the Human Alliance and the Hegemony Council simultaneously. The colony's communication array is still locked down, Isara reminded him, but Pax's terminal has a direct uplink to both the Hegemony diplomatic channel and the Mining Consortium's emergency frequency. Rick pointed to a specific communication protocol on the screen. The consortium has human members. They can relay the message to the Alliance. Isara's winter sky eyes lit up with hope. It could work. As she prepared the data for transmission, Rick received an incoming call on his personal communicator. Krell's scaled face appeared, looking battered but determined. Turner, we've got a situation, the Draconid rumbled. The miners have taken control of the main facility, but Taurian troops have Administrator Pax. They're demanding an exchange. You and the female for Pax. Don't do it, Rick replied immediately. We found something bigger than all of us. Vernar is planning genocide against humans, and he's doing it without Hegemony approval. Krell's expression shifted from surprise to grim understanding. So, we're caught in the middle of an unauthorized war. Exactly. We're transmitting the evidence now. If we can get it to both human authorities and the Hegemony Council, they might stop this before it escalates, Krell finished. What do you need from us? Time, Rick said simply. Keep the Taurians distracted for as long as you can. The Draconid bared his teeth in what passed for a smile among his species. Consider it done. As the communication ended, Isara completed the transmission preparations. Ready, she announced. Once I initiate this, there's no turning back. Vernar will know exactly where we are. Rick moved to her side, placing his hand over hers on the terminal interface. Their eyes met, human gray-green and alien winter sky, filled with the same resolve. Together, he said softly. Together, she echoed, and they pressed the transmission key as one. The terminal hummed as the data began streaming to both the Hegemony diplomatic channel and the Mining Consortium's emergency frequency. A progress bar appeared, slowly filling as the massive files transferred. How long will this take? Rick asked, acutely aware of the Taurian warship hovering above them. 5 minutes, maybe more, Isra replied. The encryption protocols for secure transmission are... The building shook violently as something exploded nearby. Warning lights flashed across the terminal screen. They're targeting the transmission. Isara exclaimed, her fingers flying across the interface to maintain the connection. 30% complete, 35. Rick moved to the viewport, watching as precision weapons fire from the Taurian warship struck communication relay towers across the colony. They're trying to cut off all outgoing signals. 45%, Isara reported, her voice tight with tension. If they sever the connection before it completes... Another explosion, closer this time, rocked the building. The lights flickered, and for a heart-stopping moment, the terminal screen went dark. Then it reactivated, the progress bar still slowly advancing. 60%, Isara breathed. Come on! Rick returned to her side, placing a hand on her shoulder. Despite the danger, despite the countdown ticking away in her implant, she remained focused and determined. In that moment, he realized his feelings for her had transcended physical attraction or the circumstances of their meeting. Asara, he began, needing to say the words while he still could. I want you to know. I know, she interrupted, her winter sky eyes meeting his. I feel it too. Her cool hand covered his, squeezing gently. When this is over, he promised, we'll have all the time in the world. The terminal chimed triumphantly. Transmission complete, Isara announced, relief washing over her features. Both channels received the full data package. Before she could celebrate, the study door burst open. Commander Drav stood in the doorway, flanked by Tarian soldiers, his reptilian face contorted with fury. Too late, Rick said, stepping protectively in front of Isara. The evidence is already transmitted. The Hegemony Council knows what Vernar has been doing. It doesn't matter, Drav snarled. You'll be dead long before any response comes. And Lord Vernar's plans will proceed, with or without Council approval. As the Taurian soldiers raised their weapons, a new alarm blared throughout the colony. Different from the previous security alerts, Drav's head snapped up, his expression shifting from rage to confusion. Proximity alert, Isara whispered. Someone new has entered the system. The viewport behind them suddenly filled with light as multiple ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly above the colony. Ships with distinctive human alliance markings. Impossible, Drav breathed. The nearest human outpost is days away. You forget, Rick said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. Humans are full of surprises. The arrival of the Human Alliance fleet transformed the standoff in an instant. Through the viewport, Rick watched as sleek human warships engaged the Taurian dreadnought, their superior maneuverability evident even to an untrained eye. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Human Alliance vessel, Intrepid, a confident female voice announced over all communication channels. Taurian forces, power down your weapons and withdraw from colonial airspace immediately. Commander Drav's reptilian features contorted with rage and disbelief. This is impossible. How did they respond so quickly? You underestimated humanity, Rick said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. We're always looking out for our own. A violent explosion rocked the building as the battle intensified above. Drav's momentary distraction gave Rick the opening he needed. He lunged forward, tackling the Taurian commander while Isara dove behind the desk for cover. The Taurian soldiers opened fire, but their shots went wild as the building shook again. Rick wrestled Drav's weapon away and fired back, forcing the soldiers to retreat into the corridor. We need to move, he told Isara, helping her up. That implant is still counting down. Her winter sky eyes were clouded with pain. It's accelerating. I can feel it. The dead man's switch must have a manual override. Vernar knows he's losing. Rick's communicator crackled to life. Turner, it's Krell. Human troops are landing at the main facility. They're asking for you. Tell them we need a medic, Rick replied urgently. Someone who can remove an implant with a biological payload. Already on it, the Draconid rumbled. Get to the medical bay. There's a human doctor with the Alliance forces. Dr. Smith, she's waiting for you. They fled Pax's residence, navigating through the chaos of the colony. The sky above was alight with weapons fire as human ships outmaneuvered their Taurian counterparts. Despite the danger, Rick couldn't help but feel a surge of pride at seeing his species in action. Disciplined, determined, in defending not just their own but aliens who had shown them loyalty. The medical bay was a flurry of activity when they arrived. Injured miners of various species were being treated alongside Human Alliance soldiers. In the center of it all stood a small, intense woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Dr. Smith! Rick called out, supporting Isara as her steps faltered. The doctor turned, her sharp eyes immediately assessing Isara's condition. This is the patient with the implant? Get her on the table now. As they helped Isara onto the examination table, the medical bay doors slid open. A tall, elegant Taurian in elaborate robes entered, flanked by Human Alliance soldiers. His scales were a deeper crimson than Drav's, and his bearing spoke of immense power and authority. Lord Vernar, Isara whispered, shrinking back against Rick. The Taurian lord's cold eyes fixed on them. How touching. My property has found herself a human protector. She's not property, Rick growled, positioning himself between Isara and Vernar. She's my wife. A technicality that will be remedied shortly, Vernar replied dismissively. I've come to reclaim what's mine. One of the human soldiers stepped forward. Lord Vernar is here under diplomatic protection. The Hegemony Council has ordered him to deactivate the implant. And why would I do that? Vernar's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. The female stole valuable research data. She deserves punishment. The Council has seen the data, the soldier continued. They know your biological weapon research was unauthorized. They've disavowed your actions to prevent war with the Human Alliance. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Vernar's features. Impossible. The Council would never... They already have, Dr. Smith interrupted, not looking up from her examination of Isara. Now either deactivate this implant, or I'll remove it surgically. And I can't guarantee it won't release its payload directly into this room. She fixed Vernar with a steely gaze. A room containing you, I might add. Vernar's eyes narrowed as he calculated his options. Finally, he reached into his robes and withdrew a device similar to the one Drav had used, but more elaborate. Step aside, he ordered Rick. Not a chance, Rick replied, his hand dropping to his weapon. It's okay, Isara said softly, touching his arm. Let him approach. If he tries anything... I'll kill him, Rick finished, his voice low and deadly serious. Vernar moved to Isara's side, his tall frame looming over her. Such devotion from a human, he remarked, studying Rick with clinical detachment. Fascinating. Perhaps there is something to this cultural contamination theory after all. He pressed a sequence of buttons on the device. Isara gasped, her back arching as the implant responded. For a terrifying moment, Rick thought Vernar had activated the dead man switch. Then Isara relaxed, her breathing steadying. It's deactivated, she confirmed, relief washing over her features. The implant is still there, Dr. Smith said, studying her medical scanner. But the biological payload and control mechanisms are neutralized. Vernar stepped back, his expression unreadable. There. I've complied with the Council's demands. Now, the female returns with me. That's not happening, Rick said firmly. The marriage registration is fraudulent. Vernar insisted. She used stolen access codes. Actually, Administrator Pack's voice came from the doorway. I've reviewed the documentation. The registration is perfectly valid under colony law. The willowy alien entered, looking somewhat battered but dignified. As the colonial administrator, I have the authority to recognize their union. And I do. Vernar's scales darkened with rage. This is outrageous. The female is my property under hegemony law. Not anymore, a new voice announced. All eyes turned to see a distinguished human officer entering the medical bay, his uniform adorned with the insignia of a Human Alliance admiral. Admiral Johnson, Human Alliance Diplomatic Corps, he introduced himself. Lord Vernar, the Hegemony Council has formally rescinded all ownership claims on the individual known as Isara 7 as part of their disavowal of your unauthorized activities. Vernar's composure finally cracked. They cannot do this. I am a lord of the hegemony, a lord who will face a hegemony tribunal, Admiral Johnson replied calmly. Your biological weapons research violated not only Human Alliance treaties, but hegemony law as well. The Council was quite clear on this point. As Vernar was led away, still protesting, Rick turned to Isara. Her winter sky eyes were wide with disbelief. Is it over? She whispered. Am I truly free? Rick took her hand, squeezing it gently. Free. And legally my wife, apparently. A smile bloomed across her face, transforming her features. Despite the bruises that still marked her blue skin, despite the chaos they'd endured, she had never looked more beautiful to him. I chose well then, she said softly, when I selected your application. Dr. Smith cleared her throat. I still need to remove that implant. It may be deactivated, but it's foreign technology in her body. The procedure took less than an hour, with Dr. Smith's skilled hands extracting the small device that had caused so much suffering. When it was over, Isara touched the small bandage on her neck, marveling at the absence of the constant presence she'd grown accustomed to. As the medical bay cleared, Admiral Johnson approached them. Mr. Turner, the Alliance owes you a debt of gratitude. The information you transmitted has potentially saved billions of human lives. It was Isara who took the risk, Rick replied. She's the real hero here. The Admiral nodded respectfully to Isara. Indeed. And that brings me to my next point. The Alliance would like to offer you both citizenship and relocation to any human world of your choosing. Your expertise would be invaluable to our defense preparations. Rick looked at Isara, raising an eyebrow in silent question. Earth, she said without hesitation. I've always wanted to see the human homeworld. Earth it is, Rick agreed, unable to keep from smiling at her enthusiasm. Later, as they stood on the observation deck of the Intrepid, watching Tarsus 4 recede in the distance, Isara leaned against Rick's side. From property to freedom, from a mail-order bride to a hero of humanity, she mused. It's not the future I imagined when I escaped Vernar. Is it a future you can be happy with? Rick asked, suddenly uncertain. In answer, she turned to him, rising on her tiptoes to press her cool lips against his. The kiss was different from their earlier ones, unhurried, full of promise rather than desperate passion. More than happy, she whispered against his mouth. For the first time in my life, I'm not just surviving. I'm living. Krell had joined them for the journey to Earth, having decided that the mining colony held little appeal after their adventure. The Draconid approached now, clearing his throat awkwardly. So, Turner, he rumbled, when you ordered that mail-order bride, did you ever imagine it would lead to all this? Rick laughed, his arm tightening around Isara's waist. Not in a million years. Humans, Krell said, shaking his scaled head in mock exasperation. You always manage to complicate things. That's what makes us interesting, Rick replied with a grin. Interesting is one word for it, the Draconid conceded. Terrifying is another. You realize you, one human, just helped bring down a hegemony lord and potentially prevented an interstellar war? Rick hadn't thought of it that way. He'd simply been protecting what was his. First Isara, then his species, then the fragile peace between humans and aliens. Just doing what needed to be done, he said modestly. And that, Isara interjected, her winter sky eyes shining with admiration, is why the Tarians fear humans so much. You don't set out to change the galaxy. You just do what's right and the galaxy changes around you. As the stars streaked past the viewport, Rick reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. What had begun as a simple desire for companionship had evolved into something far greater. Love, certainly, but also a new understanding between species. His mail-order bride had arrived bruised and frightened, carrying secrets that could have destroyed humanity. Instead, those secrets had forged an unbreakable bond between them and opened a new chapter in human-alien relations. And as Isara's cool hand slipped into his, Rick knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, human and alien, husband and wife, united by a love that had already changed the course of history